So, welcome to lesson one. We're going to get right into understanding the framework for recruitment and selection, some of the basic concepts, so that in future lessons, we'll dig deeper into some of the nuances of what it takes to become a good recruiter, a good selector, so to speak. Now, if you look at your HR program, you notice that there are a number of courses that are core, they're generic in nature. For example, employment law. It goes throughout HR. Everybody in HR needs to know a little bit of the law. It's not really a specialty for you unless you're a lawyer. You look at things like compensation and within it benefits, pay administration. You look at HRIS or training or development. Those are all specialties. You can actually become a person in HR that does that and becomes very good at it and practices it. And a generalist, of course, would dabble in a few things. Now, generalists often don't get into too much of the HRIS side, the compensation side, the health and safety side, because those are true specialties. But if you are a generalist, you do a lot of the organizing, the planning, and recruitment is one of those things that you just might be tasked to do. And there's nothing wrong with it. Think about it. Recruitment is one of the more important parts of HR. If you don't get the right people into your organization, then everything else we do really doesn't make sense. It really doesn't mean much. I mean, you could have the worst people working for you, then you can pay them well. You can have the best people working for you, and that makes a difference, a strategic difference. Now, this course is going to take you through the recruitment and selection model, and I'll be honest, the textbook doesn't do this justice. However, I want to explain to you how we can move from recruitment and selection to a concept called talent management, and I'll show that to you in one of the slides coming up. But right now, if I were to ask any one of you who wants to specialize in recruitment, many of you do put up your hand. Many of you don't put up your hand if I say, do you want to specialize in benefits? Because you stereotype. You don't know what it is. You think that it's too mathematical, it's too boring. But many of you say recruitment. Yeah, I want to specialize in it because it is public facing. It is the recruiter. It's the person who gets to meet people, gets to make that difference. Well, everybody in HR gets to make a difference, just to let you know. Now, I'm going to be a little bit tough about my opinion. You shouldn't want to specialize in recruitment, at least not all of you, because it's public facing. And two reasons. One is it is important, it is, but it becomes almost a robotic thing after a while. And the second is there's a plateau of money, there's a ceiling of how much money you can make. Now, there are exceptions. Within the recruitment field, we have jobs called headhunters or agents. And if you work for a headhunting agency or an executive recruitment firm or an agency that's temporary in nature, you can make all sorts of money. Listen, we had a graduate who finished our program and literally right away the next day started off with the headhunting agency. In his first year, he scooped up $100,000 plus. It's all commissions, right? But it's not mainstream HR. If that's what you want to do, perfectly fine. I will show you how to become very good at it and make it into a science. And anytime you can make any aspect of HR into a science, I think you can earn a lot more money. And in that way, science simply means have structure to it, have some meaning, have some rigor, have some professionalism to it. Now, recruitment itself, okay, let me tell you the neat part, the challenging part. There are people out there. There are people with skills. Institutions like Seneca produce skills. People get skills by just learning on their own. People have attitudes. They have motivations. They have personality. They have hard skills. They have soft skills. They're out there. Listen, out of 8 billion people in the world, there are probably at least 4 billion people, maybe 3 to 4 billion people who are willing to work. Now, you have an organization, a company, a business, a government, whatever it is. You need people. Look, bottom line is right now you need to get the people, the best people that your money can afford for your organization, because the best people versus the not so best people are going to add strategic value. They're going to help you accomplish your value, mission, vision, goals, whatever you want to call it. So recruitment simply looks out into the world at the number of people willing to work, and of course, who are qualified for the job. And we'll talk about that later. And gets them to be interested in your organization. That's it. That's recruitment. I mean, you might as well be a marketing major, because recruitment, in fact, is like marketing, or it's like promotion. I have a product, there are people out there with money. How do I get my product out there so people want to give me the money for it? In fact, you're a promoter, a marketer for your organization. That's what recruitment is. You don't just sit there and say, hey, I got to hire somebody and just wait for resumes to come in. I think the landscape has changed, has become more global, more social, more technical. Your creativity will come from the fact that you understand where the people are. You know how to get into their minds to make your organization attractive. Hey, look, I'll even tell you, a mining company way north in Ontario in the freezing cold with black flies all over the place, bugs. If you're a good recruiter, you can get the right people to come and work for you. Now, selection's a whole different thing. Look, getting people to apply is one thing. That's an applicant pool. But then being able to select the best of those people based on hopefully good, sound criteria, legal, of course, ethical, that's a whole different thing. And selection in itself is the science. So if you want a job just as a recruiter, be careful. You really want to move yourself more into the selection side as well. And again, we'll talk about that later. Now look at the diagram in front of us. It's pretty simple. Look, this is the recruitment selection, or what I call the staffing model. Okay, when you staff people, you're getting people to work. You're filling positions that are open, that are in demand. For whatever reason they're in demand, they're in demand. We need them. Staffing, on the flip side, should also be about knowing who didn't work out for us and then letting them go, replacing them. I think we should look at it from both points of view. I'll talk about that later as well. But if you look at the diagram, the very first box is demand. Demand. Do you really need somebody to work for you? Well, obviously, every organization needs people. But who do you need? How many do you need? What are their characteristics? What's their education? What's their experience? How do you know that you need somebody? Well, there's all sorts of techniques, and in your HR planning course, which you're taking in semester 2, you learn about things like indexation, staffing tables, succession planning, org charts. You learn about reacting to the supply of people and the demand for people, and looking at market cues and economics. But within an organization, the managers of departments know how to do their job. They know that in order for me to achieve this objective, I either need technology to help me do it, or I need people to do it. Or some managers, of course, will just ignore it and pretend it doesn't need to get done. We all get that. For example, if your organization needed quality control people, a manager could easily ignore and say, hey, yeah, I have one QC person, quality control. I really should have 2 or 3, but I'm going to ignore it. I don't need them. And then, of course, your product goes out. It's not that good a quality, and you lose market share. That's a whole different thing. I don't think it's incumbent upon the HR department to know everything about that side of it. Remember, we're HR. We don't do production. We don't do marketing. We don't do accounting. We don't do sales. But it will be nice if, as HR people, we snooped around. We were just a little bit nosy, or officially curious. And we walked in the shoes of the people in different departments. I've said this before. Find out what these other people are. Find out what their needs might be, so that you understand the types of jobs being done in those departments. So one day a manager of a department comes to you. It's the manager of product development. Comes to you and says, I need an engineer. And you say, okay, I know what an engineer is, but do you really know what an engineer is? And you ask them, what type of an engineer? What's the job title? Now, if the position is a replacement, then of course there's a job description, there's a job title. Let's call it mechanical engineer. Now, I'm not sure if any of you know what a mechanical engineer does. It's okay. You don't have to. Like I said, you don't have to be the expert, but thank God for this thing called Google. You Google, you find out what a mechanical engineer does. You come up with talking points. Of course, a well-written job description should outline a lot of things, and you learn from it. That's the beauty of being in that recruitment side. You get to learn a lot about a lot of jobs. But you always want to learn more. I've seen people hire for engineers, and I ask them detailed questions about the person they're looking for. And they can't tell me. They seem to think an engineer is just an engineer. They graduated from an engineering school. They're an engineer. But think about it. There's some nuances, something specific to your organization, some qualities that you deserve. So why not, as a HR person in recruitment, go and talk to the managers, find out what the success criteria were for engineers in the past or present. Why not reach out to professional associations like the Engineers of Ontario? As an example, I'm using engineering, of course. Why not Google? Find out. Read other people's job descriptions. Read job postings, actually, from your competitors. Why not? In fact, reach out to your network to find out, what should I really be looking for in a mechanical engineer? And again, replace that with any job out there. So typically what happens when a manager of a department says, I need an engineer, they'd fill out a form. And the form would probably be called a requisition. And that requisition then would be vetted, of course, maybe through finance, certainly through your manager. And it has to fit into the needs or the plan of the organization. And if it's within budget and the manager's authorized to hire somebody, then of course you start the process of recruitment. But typically it might not just be one person they're looking for. It could be a lot. Like, for example, if your factory got a new order for 1 million new parts, you might, the manager might be looking for 50 new employees. Your job is to sit there and say, how can I quickly get them the people with the right qualities, the right characteristics, the right skills to get the job done, and of course at the price we're willing to pay. So recruitment kicks in. We take that requisition, and we want to do this quick. I don't think HR ever wants to be accused of being the bottleneck. And the bottleneck, if you think about a bottle, there's liquid in the big side of it, and it has to get through the hole at the top. The bottleneck is that thin part at the top that prevents all the liquid from coming out. You don't want to be that. So we use systems. We're going to use systems like Taleo, applicant tracking system, in this very course. In fact, there's an assignment that you're going to be doing. It's quite interesting, actually. I'll make it easy for you. So as a recruiter, you sit there and say, okay, I need to get out to the market, the labor market, for engineers, of course. And you ask yourself, is it going to be local? Should I just look in Richmond Hill or Toronto? Should I go Ontario? Should I go wider? Should I go to Canada? National? Maybe North America? Maybe the world? So for example, if I'm looking for a chief information officer, CIO, or even a president, I might make the search global. It might be local. If I'm looking for a few machine operators, obviously it's going to be very local. You want people to be able to commute via bus or car and get to work on time. But the higher the level, the more unique the job, I think you can go wider. Then you ask yourself, how do I get the word out to potential applicants that we're looking and make my company look like it's the kind of place they want to work? Well, listen, typically, you can read the textbook if you want, okay? But typically, we put an advertisement in the newspaper, quite expensive, I think, and then hope that the readers of that newspaper are the kind of people that we want. And you can advertise in local newspapers. So if you're only looking for people, let's say in Markham, I'm sure Markham has a local newspaper, the Gazette. Advertise in there. The Toronto Sun, the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, I think it still exists. You're looking for a CIO, go to the Financial Post. I think you get that. I don't think we go out on television to really recruit. I've seen some advertisements on TV from time to time. Amazon, for example, had an ad. The military sometimes puts ads on the television. Radio, very rare. Newspapers, magazines sometimes, trade magazines. Engineers, I think, have a magazine. And as long as you know who's reading it, put an ad in there. But if you realize, wait, people aren't necessarily reading newspapers anymore, at least not the young people that I'm trying to recruit, you ask yourself, where are they? Where are they? Find them. Well, listen, reasonably, you can say they are at universities or colleges, engineering students, technicians. That's where they are right now. They're motivated. They want to work. So there's career centers at colleges, universities. You can reach out there. Of course, those are entry level. But then we get this thing called social media. Wow, what a powerful thing. And within social media, I think any one of you, even leaning towards specializing in talent management, should at least take some course in what social media is. Listen, we're talking about Twitter, Facebook, I don't know, what's the other one? Pinterest, Instagram. I don't know what people are in on. I'll tell you right now, if you tweet out a job and expect all young people out there to get your tweet, I don't think so. I've done enough work with students to know that Twitter is not their preferred choice. Facebook, maybe, I don't know. I think Instagram seems to be the thing these days. Heck, you could even creatively do a TikTok if it's compelling enough and get a person interested in your company. What I'm trying to say is be creative about it. Now, I'll put up a nice question on the discussion board. You can get quite creative about it. Now, other sources, there are trade shows that happen. There are conferences. Engineers must have conferences. Why not go to one of these? Why not go to a job fair? So as a recruiter, it's your job. If you want to be good at it, it's your job to have an inventory, almost a catalog of sources of applicants. Where are they coming from? I don't like it when people say, well, take out an ad in the newspaper. Like, what does that even mean? What newspaper? Where? How often? When? You should be more creative in your reach. So let's say we send out a message to as many people as we can, obviously. Cast a wide net. And that message we're sending out is the job posting. Now, you're going to write a job posting in part 2 of this course. Postings aren't difficult to write. I mean, you read a bunch of postings. Go on the internet, read a bunch. Go to Indeed, Workopolis, JobShark. I forgot to mention LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best, I think, to hire professional people. I don't think LinkedIn's the best to hire manual labor, agriculture workers, factory employees. I don't think that's the best thing, but certainly engineers. And you can pay money to these services to mine their data, to actually go through all the people that are on LinkedIn or Indeed or Workopolis or JobShark and find the type of people you're looking for. I mean, isn't that awesome? If I could do this for almost free or cheap, that keeps my costs down. That's awesome. Now, listen, I got to tell you, there are some companies like Google, right? You must have heard Google. Everybody wants to work for Google. It used to be Apple and Microsoft. You've heard, I want to work for Google. And I ask people, why do you want to work for Google? Why? And they say, because they're awesome. Look at their offices. They have a slide in the lobby. A slide. Really? Okay, fine. It's just a great company to work for. They're highly successful. It's brand recognition. I get it. Then why didn't you say Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola is the most recognizable brand in the world. Why didn't you say Seneca? Listen, later on I'm going to tell you why I'm attracted to Seneca. Why did I choose? And it's a funny story. I'll tell you later. Seneca's a brand, not universally recognized, but certainly people in that area recognize it. I didn't even live near Seneca when I started working there. I liked it. I'll tell you later why I liked it. Actually, you'll ask me and I'll answer the question. But Google. Now, I don't think Google has to work too hard. They don't have to spend too much money to get the word out. Hey, guys, apply to my company. They're probably getting at least 10, 20,000 applications a week, if not more. So there's some organizations, simply because they're good marketers for their products, tend to attract an awful lot of people. But that's the thing, they attract an awful lot of people, which means they have to go through all the Yahoos of the world, no pun intended. Get it? Google, Yahoo. By Yahoo, I mean people who don't qualify for the job will apply anyways. And you have to get through those somehow, all those resumes. Can you imagine processing 100,000 resumes? Well, that's where applicant tracking comes in, of course. But in any case, I took my job description, my job specification, and I created a pretty compelling, a nice piece. It's called a job posting. And that's the message you're going to get out to the public. And how often you do it. I mean, you're not going to bombard LinkedIn messages every day. You're going to do it in a selective way. And that's where, again, social media knowledge comes in. How often do you get the word out? Now, wouldn't it be awesome if somebody on a national TV show like the 10 o'clock news, CBC National News, they said, hey, this company is hiring. Oh, of course. Of course. I mean, that would be a dream come true. Things like that don't happen. The other way to look at it is if your employees that work for you right now are happy and they're motivated, they're satisfied, they themselves are going to get the word out to their friends, their family. They brag about your company. So other people say, wow, this is awesome. I want to work there. And that's part of that culture. That's an evolution. It develops. Look, I'll give you an example. I'd be more than happy, and I do it all the time, to recruit people for Seneca. Good people that I know, that I see. I want to snatch them up before anybody else does. I take that much pride in Seneca College as an institution. So word of mouth in that way, referrals, internal, that could go a long way to developing an applicant pool. But okay, fine. We have a posting. We sent the word out one way or another. And we start getting all these applications. And let's say that for this engineering job, we got 1,000 applications. And of course, there has to be some sort of cutoff. So if the person who initiated the demand, the manager of research and development, who needs a mechanical engineer, of course, you're going to ask them, how soon do you need them? If they say tomorrow, that's sure, it's possible if you're willing to pay enough. But reasonably, they say, I want one in a month. So then you're going to look at the applicants that come in and relatively quickly process them. So out of the 1,000, you have to look at the bare minimum requirements for the job. And of course, a bare minimum number one would be an engineering degree. If you don't have a designation, not just a degree, but an APEAO P-Eng certification, if you don't have that, you can't have the job. Let's get that straight. And then maybe ability to communicate, years of experience, whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe it could be exposure to a certain type of product, experience. But out of the 1,000, you find that only 500 of them qualify. Only 500. And you see that line? That's a first filter. So the dotted lines are filters. You have to have a quick way to look at all the resumes. You don't just look at a few, you look at them all. And then weed them out based on minimum requirements, bona fide occupational qualifications or requirements, the minimum. And once you have that applicant pool that fits the minimum requirements, they move over to this box called selection. That is now your candidate pool. Applicants are simply people who applied. Move them to the selection box, they become candidates. Now, here's the cool part. If you have applicants, the Yahoos of the world, who just applied even though they know they don't qualify, it's awesome, it's good. You got their resume for free. Really. Maybe they're suitable for other jobs. So keep those applications. We don't throw away resumes anymore. I know they said 6 months and we throw it away. We don't do that. It's electronic, it's digital. Keep them. You can mine them later on. But now we're in the selection box. And within the selection box, and we have a separate section on this, so I'm not going to do too much. And I'll repeat the recruitment stuff in a different session as well. But in selection, you pass the candidates through a set of more filters, finer and finer and finer filters, until you come up with maybe 2 or 3 or up to 5 of the best that your money can afford. And you want to do this quickly, because that best person in your selection pool, your candidate pool, is not going to wait around forever. They might get an offer from somebody else. You want to act quickly now. So you want to start doing things like matching against your job description for more and more experience, more qualities, more characteristics, all these compensable factors, things that are important to you. And then you want to do things like background checks and reference checks and whatever it is that you do. And once we finish, we make the offer to the single best person that we could find. And we make an offer, and they accept the offer. We create an employee file on the HRIS. We hire them. We did that in our class earlier. And then once you hire them, of course, you were able to calculate just the right amount of pay to give them and all the other terms of employment. Once you hire them, then you put them through some sort of orientation or onboarding process. And you use the statutory 3-month probationary period. You do some sort of an evaluation to see if that employee, in fact, is working out. So you notice they went from an applicant here to a candidate here to an employee here. Get rid of them if they don't work out. That's your feedback loop. And then go back into your selection pool and offer it to the second best. Now, quite often, of course, the first best you offer them, they say no, thank you. Either because they were just testing the market, they don't want the job, or they got a job from another company quicker than you, a better offer. You still have the second, third, fourth, fifth available to you. Now, we're going to talk later on about problems. Obviously, this method, what I just described, is ideal. I think that's what you want to set up. But not every organization does it. I mean, in fact, just yesterday, there was a client, and I heard a story. I go, what the heck you thinking? And it was okay for them. They go, I don't care. I just need a person. Here, you. Guy walking off the street. Here, come work for me. I go, are you nuts? Are you crazy? I shouldn't have said that. But in fact, they did just hire the person. Will they work out? Won't they? I don't know. All I know is in my organization, I don't want to roll the dice and say, hey, keep my fingers crossed. My God, I hope they work out. No, we don't do that, right? So that's in a nutshell. I mean, listen, if you just retain that alone, what you just heard in the last, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that's good enough. And for those of you that don't want to specialize in this area of HR, then you need to have at least that much understanding. I mean, heck, the course is over then, isn't it? No, it's not. It's not. Listen, here's the best of both worlds. You are all going to be applicants at some point. You're going to be looking for jobs. It would be nice if you knew where the demand was coming from. If you knew which industries, which organizations are going to have demand. A little bit of economics in there, I suppose. But then if you knew parts of the recruitment process and the selection process, you could almost use it to your own advantage as an applicant, as a candidate. But then, of course, you're part of HR, and this is going to become useful to you as an HR person as well. So, a little bit of definitions here, okay? And by the way, I should remind you that everything here, I mean, this is just your audio version of, just to give you perspective of the lesson. But I have notes as well, and I want you to read those notes. It fills in some of these little tiny missing pieces. I might say something quickly, but in the notes, it's a little bit more detail. And then I've also given you some internet links. I think those are nice. You should go through them, at least what interests you. And there's a discussion board, and light it up. Put your thoughts, put your ideas. You're a professional grad student. Put your ideas there. Let us know what you're thinking. That way you evolve a body of knowledge on this topic. And again, I'll keep saying this. Whether you want to specialize in this or not, it doesn't matter. You should at least know that much, that you can work with people who are specialists in it, especially if you're a generalist. You should have a much bigger picture of your workforce and where you want to be than the specialist doing the individual jobs, right? So what is recruitment? Look, in simplicity, in simple terms, it is the process of developing a pool of applicants who are ready to work for you, right? People who just want to work for you. Selection is a process of selecting the best fit candidates from the applicant pool. And that's why it's important to have a large pool. I mean, I think we all know that if you have more to choose from, you can choose more or better. The more you have to choose from, the better quality choice you can make, I think. I mean, I don't think it's really possible, although it could be possible, to have every one of your applicants really bad. Yeah, I guess it's possible. But if you only had one or two applicants, guess what? You have to choose from one or two applicants. Not good. That's like flipping a coin 50-50, right? Heads or tails. Selection's the way to go. Selection is the most important thing. Selection is great if you have a large applicant pool to choose from. Now, I promise you I talk about talent management. The textbook doesn't really get there. Those out in the field of recruitment rarely connect the two. I'm excited about it. And I'll tell you why. Because our own director of talent management, a guy by the name of Ted Moriarty, one of the smartest people I've met in HR. Many of you might meet him. He works at our Markham campus. He's great. He managed to take a role called recruitment, realize, wait a minute, hang on a second, that's limited in scope. And, he embraced this idea of talent management. He recognized that the people we need to find and the people we need to hire and the people we need to keep and motivate and retain, they're talent. That's talent. Talent allows an organization to get things done. For me to manage that talent, it can't just be about getting them inbound, bringing the right people in. That's recruitment and selection. At, of course, the right cost, the best quality for the money I can afford. But talent management should also be the outbound side, letting the wrong people go. And we don't do that too often. Again, look, I've asked you this question before. I'll ask you again. Have you ever worked with somebody year after year, day after day, and you shake your head and you say, why are they still here? Well, that's because we don't worry about the outbound thing too much. You should think about it. So talent management is getting the right people in. I get that. Getting the wrong people out. And then a few things in between that maintains that level of talent, keeps the organization chugging along, going into the future, achieving strategic goals, and all that vision, mission values. Talent management involves elements of performance management. Think about it. If you don't have a good performance management system, now how do you know how well people are doing? I mean, you can't just look at, that guy's good, that guy's bad. It has to be somewhat formal, I think. And then, of course, HR planning. That's important. You're taking a course in it. How do you know how many people you're going to need in the future? And that's fine. Okay, fine. I could say I need 20 more people next year. But how do you know there's going to be enough of them? So demand planning, supply planning, a little bit of economics in there, I suppose. You always have to wonder, is the market going to be loose or tight? Am I planning for that? So my friend Ted Moriarty at our HR department does a fair bit of planning as well. He looks into the future. Do we have the right number of people? And then compensation. So talent management doesn't do compensation. Let's get that straight, okay? That's a whole different thing. But they're meeting with them all the time to actually influence the whole compensation mix. Line it up with the demographic. Line it up with what people's expectations are. Line it up with what it takes to get people interested, attracted to your organization, keep them, and motivate them. Now, talent management, it should be and is heavily involved with organizational development or training and development or learning and development. Call it whatever you want. They work very close together because I might have talent that I bring in and they have the right skills and attitudes and aptitudes and knowledge. But we need a good, robust T&D scheme system to make sure that that talent stays current, relevant to changes, right? Changes. Things change. Jobs change all the time. I mean, listen, we didn't all need to know computers when we started. Now we need to know computers and software. That's a change, isn't it? New type of technology in medicine, even engineers, a bus driver, machine operator. So training and development, of course, allows us to keep the good people we have and then just keep them up to date and current. And by the way, that's hard and soft skills. Oh yeah, you're taking a T&D course this term as well. And then, of course, legal compliance. And that's, again, not a specialty. It's not something exclusively done by talent management. But I think talent management has to pay quite a bit of attention to the legal side of things. I think it's session 3 or a future session that I'm going to talk about some of the legal implications. So I want you to give that a thought. Google it, actually. Find out what talent management is. Now, if you yourself take the time to become really good at recruitment and selection and testing and all that stuff, but then on the side, dabble in what performance management is. Learn about it. Get certified in it even. Become good at HR planning. And then know enough about compensation and T&D, enough to work very well with those team members. You are going to be an awesome talent management person. You're going to be the overseer, the coordinator. Because let me remind you, at the end of the day, if you don't have the right people with the right attitude and the right skills to do the job, it really doesn't matter what you do. Think about it. Now, question for you. I kind of answered it. How do we move from RNS to talent management? I mean, look, from a personal point of view, for you, I just told you. Become good at performance. Know more about comp. Become really good at T&D. Know more about it. And HR planning. I get that. But as an organization, why am I still seeing areas within HR called recruitment and selection? Why? Can we not move that to talent management? Because those organizations only do the recruitment and the basic selection side. Then they hire people, and those people go into the workplace, into your organization, and they're managed by other people in HR. Do their own independent thing. There's no coordination. So you, as a champion of this idea of talent management, might go to your boss, have a conversation saying, hey, boss, listen, we're doing recruitment, we're doing selection, I get it. But why don't we, or why don't I, become the coordinator, the thinker, the architect, actually, if you want to call yourself, of moving to an overall package called talent management so that we have much better coordination amongst these various areas of HR that should be working together. Again, to attract, to retain, and to motivate the right people, the right talent, actually. So think about it. Are you hiring the body, the person, or the talent that they possess? I'm trying to think of a job where all you need is a body. No, it's pretty much a talent, okay? I'll be honest. So take the word talent more seriously. Formalize it. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, are you interested in a career in recruitment selection? Talent management? How do you get there? What roles exist? Look, I got to tell you, on the most part, after you take this course, you don't have to think much. Very popular entry-level job, your first job, maybe even a co-op job, is a recruiter or recruitment specialist or recruiting assistant. Call it whatever you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. Dabble in it. Don't stay in it for too long if you don't want to do it. It's where your boss says, go find me applicants for this job. And again, remember, if you don't do it right, you're going to leave the best people out there. They're not, if people don't know about your job, they're not going to apply. You remember earlier in the other course, we talked about sources of food. If you're a foodie, do you know where to get the food that you want at the moment you want it, at the price you're willing to pay? Well, if you're a foodie, you know exactly where to go. So treat getting applicants the same way. Take on the job of recruiter, dabble in it, make it special. So if you stay in it and you become really good at it, especially the social media side, we might give you a title called recruitment specialist. Now look, for either one, the starting salary is the same. In South Ontario, on the low end, 35,000, high end, 42,000 to start. But I got to tell you, after 5 years, if you make 50, that's you're going to make 50. 60, you have to be pretty senior in a pretty large organization. You can be a recruitment and selection specialist. Same idea. There's a plateau. There's rare occasions where people make more money than that. And like I said, if you're a headhunter or recruitment agent as a salesperson, really, you can make an awful lot of money. But let's look at the real titles that we should be aiming for. Take a job as a recruitment specialist, fine. Get the title changed. Inspire people to change it to talent management coordinator. Now you're dabbling, you're coordinating activities of all these things we mentioned earlier. And the ultimate would be director of talent management. That's about as high as you go. 6 figures, sure. I mean, think about it. The director of talent management at Seneca, you can Google his salary, by the way. It's on the sunshine list for Ontario. It makes really good money. But here's the thing. Why is his role that important at Seneca? Well, think about it. We have, 4,000 plus people? The most critical would be the faculties. Within the faculties, the support. It's like on the most part, it's a well-run machine. How is it a well-run machine? Because our director of talent management has coordinated not just the planning, but the performance, the compensation, the training side, and of course to start with, to get the right people. Not always. It's not perfect. Think about the head of talent management at a company called IBM, or Google for that matter. I mean, it is a job. It's huge. It's big. It's a well-oiled machine that they create, and I think that's a challenge any one of you can take on right now. Do those things I asked you to do. So have a look. Download some sort of, Google some sort of job postings for these different jobs if you're interested. But move away from the recruiter to talent. Okay? Next question. What are some possible consequences of using poor or outdated recruitment selection practices? Listen, we haven't really got into these practices yet. This is just a peripheral type of a question. I mean, let me give you examples. A poor or an outdated practice, like I mentioned before, would simply be to put an ad in a newspaper. There's still newspapers. The Saturday Star has a pretty large employment section or career section. You go to Washington, D.C., the Washington Post, their career section every single Sunday is thicker than our entire newspaper in Toronto. So sure, I mean, people still do it, but is it outdated? Because I'm thinking, I don't know anybody under the age of 40 that is actually buying a newspaper and reading it. I mean, they might be, I don't know. I think they're getting their news from other sources, internet, on their phone. And that's important. Where are they getting it, not just how? So we talked earlier about social media, organizations that cannot embrace social media to get to where the good candidates are, especially LinkedIn and Pinterest. I think Pinterest, I'm not sure. Maybe that other one, Instagram. You'll figure it out, right? And remember, that changes. Now, if you're looking for somebody really senior, a vice president, for example, with a lot of tenure, I'm pretty sure you're not going to use social media as much, maybe LinkedIn, but they might be in a different place. That would be more headhunter. That would be more like hiring an agency, a firm to do that work for me. Maybe to be impartial, but simply because they're connected. They're connected. They have a network of these people who might be willing to work for me. Think about that. And in selection, just to give you some examples, now you're going to read about this in my notes in more detail. But we use outdated practices. Like, I'll give you an example in selection, a lie detector test. You ever heard of this thing? Formerly called a polygraph. And before I hire you, I'm going to make you tell the truth or catch you if you don't. I mean, come on, we have this thing called a human rights code. We'll talk about that later. There's some merit to it. Or using like references, reference checks. They don't mean as much anymore. I already told you earlier in my other course that organizations aren't giving as many employee references as before. Now, if that's official part of your checklist, get it done, then we can move on. That's a bottleneck right there. It's outdated. Maybe we're not doing it. Relying on things like managerial judgment or gut feeling. Those are antiquated practices. I think we live in a world now that the people who want to work for us, who should work for us, demand and in fact deserve more of a formal process. Formal, fair, equitable, transparent process of how we choose people to work for us. And in fact, using the language and the means that younger generations deserve, that they react to, they appreciate. So as you read my notes, you're going to get more details on this question. This is more of a question also to get you to think, okay? Actually, Google, there's tons of YouTube videos of things we do and things we don't do that work and that they don't work. Here, let me throw something out at you. What if I took a poster and I went at the corner of Yonge and Dundas? Now, if you don't know what that is, it's like, I don't know, pretty much the middle of the city. A lot of people walking by there. What, a few 100,000? And you take your poster and you know, on a stick, you just wave it around and say, hey, come work for me. Come work for me. I mean, many people think you're creepy. A lot of people just won't even read your note. Come on, really? But is that really a thing? Because we used to do it in the old past. Not we, but people used to do it. That was a way. You put a note outside your factory, help wanted. Does that really work anymore? I mean, do people walk around as much as before? Maybe. I don't know. But it could be an outdated or poor practice. So as you read the notes, I think you're going to learn a little bit more about it. That's a good question. Wow, that's a good question. What is the impact that current socio-economic, and socio means society and people, how we behave together, group behavior, individual behavior, and economic, I think you know what economic means. What is the impact that current socio-economic conditions are having on recruitment and selection practices? Well, look, you're going to Google this. It's going to be a discussion board item. I don't just want to give it to you. And I'm not even going to assume that you have taken economics, and that's fine. Don't worry about it, or sociology or anthropology. I think you just need to be part of our society to appreciate this. Listen, currently, we're going through some pretty tough times that are both socio and economic in nature. You know, the whole COVID thing is happening. There's an awful lot of people who are just not working right now. Now, an awesome question would be when all of the dust settles, and I don't know, I don't want to say it's 2 months or 3 months. Let's just say 2 months, okay? Or 3 months. In 3 months when businesses open up, are those businesses going to sit there and assume that all of my qualified employees, my staff, that I spent years working with and developing into good employees, are they all going to come back? My answer is no. A lot of people right now who were part of the system, who year after year, decade after decade, went to work and did the job, are going to use this unprecedented opportunity. You know, listen, they're staying at home. A lot more time to think. and Google. And they're going to say, nah, this is my time for change. I'm not going back. And in some cases, those going back might not be an option. Those jobs are going to be missing. There's going to be a lot of organizations themselves are going to say, okay, hang on, wait. Before we let you back, I don't think we need that many people anymore. And that, of course, in a few years will settle back. Organizations will always hire additional people. That's not going to be a problem. But in the short term, I think the current situation is going to have a tremendous impact or influence on recruitment selection. I think recruiters are going to have to get smarter. Two ways. One is figure new ways to get to the people who can work for us. It's a time to re-energize. And also figure out a hard way to keep the people we have. That, in fact, becomes a recruitment thing. Convince, send out the right messaging to our current employees. You got to come back. Gonna have to work harder. Selection-wise, I hope that organizations don't get so desperate to get the people back that they ignore some of the rules, the criteria we might use, some of the rigor we might have had in selection. Meaning if I need 5 people, I went through 2 properly, the other 3 just please come and work for me. I hope not. In fact, I think the labor market, well, let me tell you the truth, okay? The labor market for you, HR professionals, I mean, listen, there isn't one right now. Let's just get that straight, okay? There isn't one right now, not until we settle all this COVID business. But in general, in the summer, there never is, in Canada anyways. The market's very, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? It's not there, okay? But come September, October, usually the market opens up every year that I know. Only because there's, summer students coming in to get some work done. Students are going to go back to school. Then the market opens up for you, new graduates. I think that when all of this COVID situation settles, and let's put let's go completely to September, October, makes sense, that there's going to be a slightly greater demand for HR people. I think so. And that's going to be your opportunity. And that's why I keep saying take on the specialties, take on stuff other people don't want to do, like HRIS or benefits, health and safety even. Those are your opportunities to get in. But right now you just need to hang in there. So other current socioeconomic conditions, globalization, of course, completely has an impact. The engineer that you're fighting for today to get is not just looking for a job here. They're going to go all over the world, especially young people say, I'll make a few bucks, a few more extra dollars in another country. Make my money, then come back home. So now you have to compete in the labor market with organizations all over the world, especially with social media and communication being so good. So I want you to Google. Actually, first of all, just think. Think about what you know to answer this question in different ways. And also then Google and find out what other, not just current socioeconomic, but past or what you foresee to be in the future, how could they have impacted recruitment selection? And listen, earlier, years ago, I would have asked, how did 9/11 change, impact recruitment and selection? Right, think about it. How does a changing demographic, changing generations, mental health even, how does that change how we recruit and select? Now, this is a good topic. We're going to talk about it later as well. I don't have to actually talk much about it. You've learned an awful lot about this in your undergraduate work. You learned a lot about it in the first semester in different courses. I mean, I feel that you're prepared for this. I think you all have good ethics. Or do you? Do you? I don't mean ethics as a student. I mean ethics overall as a person, a human. A person who's going to be working in HR who in fact is going to be the caretaker of other people. Yeah, think about it. HR are the caretakers of everybody else in that organization. So what are ethics? You can answer that. You know what that is. And how do they relate to recruitment and selection? Well, look, again, you're going to Google this. You're going to learn a lot more. These are open-ended questions I'm asking. But do you think it's possible that a boss at a company, an organization, is unethical about hiring? Who they hire? Are there discriminatory practices, prejudicial practices, biases, conscious or unconscious? We'll talk later about the idea that an unconscious bias, not knowing you're doing it, is acceptable. I don't think so. If you look at the concept of talent management, that's teachable behavior. But is it ethical for a manager to say, look, I'm only going to hire a receptionist, or all my receptionists are going to be women? Legally defined. Blonde hair, blue eyes, I'm not sure what the profile. They might suffice in their own mind, justify that by saying this is a public-facing person, aesthetically appealing individual as a receptionist just might bring in more business. I mean, I'm not, well, there you go. That's ethics right there, right? Yes or no? We live in a democracy, I suppose. But then on the flip side, a television or a movie producer who has to hire actors, will they discriminate on the basis of looks? Or modeling agency? Of course. That is a basis for discrimination. If you're looking for a male actor, legally defined, to sell, I don't know, a beard shaving product, I'm sure you can discriminate and say I can only hire a man to do this, or male, I suppose. Now, there's lots of nuances within that, gender identification and so on. But there is a business right to do certain things that are good for the business. But quite often, it's the other way. It's not right. We have Human Rights Code. We have Human Rights Act. You know that, right? We have a charter. If you say I'm only going to hire a certain ethnicity, and you say because they are all good at that particular job, and I'm thinking, well, where's the proof? If you say that I'm only going to hire this particular ethnicity because we all know they're all good at math, maybe at some point somebody figured that out. Is it anecdotal? Is it stereotypical? Where did you see this? On CNN? Where's the proof? Where's the study? I'm okay if all the people you end up hiring happen to be a certain ethnicity, but you didn't hire them because of their ethnicity. You didn't hire them because of their age or their gender. I will not hire young people for that particular job because they're all punks. They don't have the integrity. They don't have the work ethic to get that job done. I'll only look for older people. Or the other way around. Think about it. If I hire old people, they're only going to cause accidents and they forget things. They're going to piss off the younger people. Where's the evidence? I think especially in Canada, we have a lot of institutions who do a lot of research on these sorts of things. By the way, none of these are my opinions. I think we get that straight. But that's part of your ethics. Should I pay? Here, perfect one. When I recruit you and then I select you, the job offer I make to females will have less money on it than males. Whoa, really? Well, that used to be a prevailing attitude years and years and decades ago. For whatever reason, you can Google that. Or is it merit-based? Are you basing it on sheer merit and bona fide criteria? You're learning this in other courses, and your law course, of course. So we won't dig too deep into it. I want you to think about it, though. Can you, in fact, use recruitment and selection to hire ethics in managers? So you hire managers who have that ethics built in, or let the T&D process kick in and develop them to be ethical thinkers, unbiased. Or at least shed off as much bias as you possibly can from the selection decision. I mean, listen, we all have biases. I think, listen, I don't like green ice cream for some reason. I have a bias towards green ice cream. Or is it a bias against? Oh, I don't know. Are there certain people I don't like? Absolutely. I absolutely hate people who throw garbage in public. I hate people. I mean, I'm not sure that person. I'm just saying anybody who spits on the ground. Now, by me saying that, was it unethical for me to say? No, I don't think so. I didn't say I hate all of a certain type of people. And I'm itching to say things, names, call people out. I'm not going to. I'll get in trouble for that. It's being recorded. That would be highly stereotypical of me. But in our society, I think we understand throwing garbage on the floor maybe isn't a good thing. So I hate people who throw garbage on the floor. Not in their own homes, but outside. Spitting, I hate. I don't think that was unethical. I think I just called out bad behavior. Think about it. Think about it. Actually, I'm going to give you some great homework. I'll try to squeeze this in towards the end. I might get in trouble. I did it last year. It worked out very well. And what we did in our last session, and we might do it again virtually, that'll be the one live session we do this summer, is I want you all to just blurt out every bias, every prejudice, every stereotype. Oh, please, especially the stereotypes. If you want to watch a little Russell Peters, go ahead, okay? And we're going to do it, and all of you are going to be shaken by it, yes. But we're going to do it just so we can balance our emotion, our emotional intelligence, so that we know that this is what we will be faced with in HR. We will be bombarded by it, and we will not get offended by it because it's not about us. We have to be willing to hear it without being upset. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll do that. I did it last year. It got very shaky, but at the end, everybody appreciated. They said, good, you know what? Somebody actually said it out loud. And none of it actually was my own. I'm a nice guy. I don't really hate anything or anybody. Except green ice cream, of course. I already told you that. But it was cool just to see how people might think. And how then you could relate to the manager who thinks that way. And dig deep and truly find out why do they think that way. Especially the subconscious type of behaviors. The systemic stuff. Stuff that's built in. There's lots to research, lots to think about ethics. Thank God I'm not going to make you write a paper on this. I think you've taken enough courses to get into this topic. Why is it better to base a selection system on science? And again, loosely, don't think of it as science as in a lab coat in science. I know most of you are not science majors. That's fine. I've used the word science many times. Science is simply a more formal, more structured approach, more inquisitive, more equitable, more fair, balanced approach to doing something versus a gut feeling. Now, for those of you that don't know what a gut feeling is, it's like, I just feel it, that's the right decision. It's like when you buy a car. You see the car, I have a gut feeling, I love the car. Or science would suggest you actually did your research. Not just on what the car looks like, but also the technical aspects of the car, the gas economy, the safety features, the price. So many of us are good at using our gut feeling, or what we call our managerial judgment. You've heard people say, I'm a good judge of that. Well, yeah, there are. We hire senior managers, vice presidents, presidents, pay them millions of dollars because they are good at their gut feeling. But it's in fact not gut feeling because in their brain, they have this tremendously evolved framework of context. We talked about that in another course, where they see things, they hear things, they observe, and they're able to filter it out so quickly that their gut feeling or their managerial judgment decision seems to be based on sound judgment. It's credible. Many of us can't do that. So next time you look at somebody, and you say, I have this feeling that person's an awesome person. They're going to be doing well in this job. How the heck do you know? I can go groom myself to look like that person. I could be the dumbest person on earth. I wouldn't know anything about the job. So then bias kicks in. And when we start doing that, and we start doing that as a group, and we see it in the media, it becomes systemic. Hire those types of people. Insert the ethnicity in there because they're good at math. Don't hire that set of people because they're not good at this type of work. Really? You followed around everybody in that particular group, really? So, of course, it is always better to base a selection system or decision making on a formal approach, scientific, than just gut feeling. However, hang on. Don't rule out gut feeling. There are good managers out there who have a gut feeling, because part of hiring somebody isn't just what they show on paper, what they know, their credentials, their experience. Sometimes a manager just has to look you in the eye, just by the way you talk, your body language, your nonverbal cues, your charisma. Know that you're going to be the right fit for that team. You can't really measure that. It's difficult. There's tests we can do to measure that, but sometimes it's just a manager says, I just know. I mean, it's kind of like Nona or Daddy saying, that girl's not good enough for you. That could be a highly biased thing for Nona to say. Maybe the girl wasn't like Nona. Nona, by the way, is grandmother. Daddy is grandmother. But sometimes you sit and say, yeah, Granny knows stuff. They're a good judge of character because you've observed it over the years. They've always been right about character. It's anecdotal evidence that becomes scientific. And you trust that. Is it right or wrong? I don't know, but you trust it. Okay? Now you're going to be navigating this at some point during your careers. You're going to have to educate managers on the right way to do it. We're not just talking about this for us. We're talking about it from the point of view of what management does. Because from selection point of view, you might be in HR and you'll do all the structured selection like the testing and the reference checks and so on, resume checks. But at the end, the hiring decision falls to the manager who the person will be working for. And in our example, it will be the research and development manager. And unless that manager knows what you know, and I know they haven't taken this course, that it's incumbent upon you and HR to educate them, or at least be there side by side to make sure that they're not straying, that they're not displaying any sort of this unethical decision making. That was a nice introduction to the topic. I think if we spent the rest of this course just exploring bits and pieces of what I outlined today, that is awesome. I mean, that'll do the trick. That's what you need, to be honest. The textbook might have a few more pages in it, fine. You know what my job is? To go through the textbook and weed out all the fluff. I love this online format because we don't feel pressured to fill in a 2-hour and 45-minute session. We like to give it to you just the way it is. There's a little bit more. We're going to talk about validation and so on. Reliability. We're going to talk about decision making in recruitment selection, yield ratios, the metrics of recruitment selection. So what I'd like you to do between now and next session, and the concept of next session isn't really week by week, although I think you should stick to some sort of a schedule. Like if you spend an hour on this today, and you're going to spend another hour looking up the links and reading some of the stuff I put up there, that's good. Stick to it once a week. Look, you can easily leave all this till the last week. You know that, right? Please don't. You need to stick to a structure, especially since you're taking 5 other courses. Promise me, okay? Now, I need you to read the notes for session 1. So in addition to this audio recording, read the notes. It's not much. I mean, the first set of notes are only 3-4 pages. And then I put some links down there for you. Look at them and reflect on what you see on those. And then also I'll put some questions in the discussion board that you can light up, okay? Next session, We will get more into the recruitment selection metrics, talk a bit about reliability and validity, and that's the science thinking side of recruitment selection versus the willy-nilly side. And we'll have a look at some of the errors in recruitment selection. Now, if you're itching to find out, okay, fine, listen, what is selection? Like, what tests do I do? What checklist do I have? Well, just wait for it. It's okay. It's going to come. Look, I have you for 6 weeks. I'm going to do 6 of these lessons. The 7th week, so to speak, will be reserved for your test, right? I'm going to give you a test, a pretty typical test. And then you're going to get a week off, and then there'll be a new professor coming in for the second half. And they don't have much in terms of lectures, so there's only, I think, 2 or 3 chapters worth of things to cover. But they're going to spend a lot of time with you on an experiential assignment, which I outlined in the intro. It's a pretty nice assignment, actually. And the cool thing is you're not going to be just working on each other. You're going to be working on people you don't know, somebody from another program who they have to do this for an assignment for themselves to figure out how to get hired. And get this, we're going to do all of this in Taleo. What awesome, awesome way to build a skill that looks really good on your resume. It's called Taleo. I'll have those accounts ready for you. Actually, they should be ready by the time you're listening to this. Okay, so we'll see you in session 2.